Hello everyone, welcome to the Green Man channel. Hope you're all good and well. So for this Saturday premiere, I'm talking about the next book in the Malazan Book of the Fallen series. I'm talking about Toll The Hounds, which follows on from 7th book Reaper's Gale in the Stephen Erickson epic fantasy series. So what I usually do for these videos is the first part of the video I talk about the book itself, do a non-spoiler review, a spoiler-free review. And then the second part of the video, I talk about my favourite quotes and favourite moments, which usually contain spoilers, so I do a spoiler warning before that part of the video. First thing I want to say about this book, straight up front, I love the front cover. I love the artwork with the hound glowing in the green light there. Probably my favourite book cover so far in the series. So, Toll The Hounds. So first of all, this was a very enjoyable, pretty exciting book with kind of a lot of, it was kind of like lots of poetic moments, particularly in the book's climaxes towards the end. Lives up to the epic fantasy, the kind of epic fantasy that Erickson tends to deliver as well. I do think my issue with Toll The Hounds, perhaps in a similar way that I had a bit of an issue with Reaper's Gale, is that the writing style here is very chaotic. I mean, I've always found Erickson's writing style a little bit tricky to follow, but the last two books in this series I found particularly tough, with his really extravagant kind of jumping around scenes multiple times in the same chapters, where he really does that a lot for me in the last two books. And I feel like in the earlier books of the series he did it less, but it's just very much the case in these later books so far that have frustrated me a little bit. I can forgive that though, because a lot of the content and the individual scenes within these chapters of this book are pretty great. I mean, there's, as I say, the final stages of this book are worth the wait, I think, with big characters in the mix, like a lot of Malazan fans I know love Anamanda Rake. You get Anamanda Rake quite a bit in this book, because, of course, some of this is set in Black Coral, which is where the Tista and Dee have settled following the destruction of Moon's spawn. So you get more Tista and Dee involved here. You get his son in the mix. You get some of his loyal subjects like Spinok Durav, who I think is a really good character that's introduced in this book. I love Spinok Durav, his scenes in this book as well. So you get some new characters, as always, new characters introduced. It's nothing new to Malazan, that tends to happen. But you get reintroduced to old characters as well from Darujistan. We go back to Darujistan for going back to the likes of the Assassin's Guild. You get the Bridge Burners coming back in the mix again. Of course, you have the likeable Mappo returning as he is in his search for Icarium with the help of Gruntle, another one of my favourite characters in the series, coming back into the mix here. And yeah, so it's a book that feels like with the characters it has, it couldn't really fail, even with that crazy writing style that drives me a bit round the bend sometimes when I'm reading these books. It still makes for some really great scenes. And as I say, the climax for me of this book, the last moments, a bit like with the Bone Hunters, where I found the strongest, or my favourite part of that book was the final moments, the climax moments in the kind of last part of that book was my favourite of that book. I think possibly the same with Toll The Hounds, but there's some really good mini stories in here, as I say, alluding to some of the characters I've already mentioned, overall pretty strong entry for me in the series so far. Prefer it to Reaper's Gale for sure. Not sure where it would come otherwise. I'd have to do maybe a ranking video when I get to the end of all the books of this series to really kind of conclude my thoughts. But I feel like to do that, I may have to read this series a second time, because there's so much that goes into these books. There's so much to read. I mean, this book, right, 1,294 pages. I mean, oh my goodness. I mean, that is a tale in itself. I mean, it's like, that could be 4 books, right, of one other series. I mean, it's a huge series to digest, so there's lots more for me to revisit. So what I'm going to do now is do the spoiler warning part of this video and go into my favourite moments and favourite quotes. So switch off now if you don't want to know anything more about Toll The Hounds or any big spoilers anyway about this book. So let's start with the first favourite moment, which is a saying among the Rivi of Northern Genabakis, which is quoted here. And I know this isn't like necessarily a big scene in the book, but sometimes I just like these quotes, these little descriptions, or these kind of sayings. So this is the saying: a man who stirs awake the serpent is a man without fear. A man without fear has forgotten the rules of life. I kind of like that way that kind of underlines the importance of fear. So next up, page 236. This is a reunion, really, and I guess it's just really the moment is just a reunion of the way that Crocus is reunited, or Cutter, he has these two names, doesn't he, is reunited here with Rannick Nom. And I just really like this moment where he actually almost kills him. It's like, God's below, it's good to see you, Rannick Nom. I mean, if I'd known it was you at first, you shouldn't have come up on a man behind like that. I could have killed you. So just a kind of nice, it's something I like that happens in epic fantasy, characters that haven't been together for a long time. And you see this in other series, I think, like Game of Thrones and even Wheel of Time, when characters long apart are reunited. There's something kind of nice about that. It's kind of heartwarming. I'm not sure that's the right word for this, but it's a nice moment in the book. The next part, my next favourite moment, is where again it's kind of like a saying, really, describing, I think, this sort of Andorist character and how he made children these killing machines, if you like. So it's described in this paragraph: children made perfect soldiers, perfect killers. They had no sense of mortality. They did not fear death. They took bright pleasure in destruction. Even when that destruction involved taking a life, they played with cruelty to watch the results. They understood the simplicity of power found there in the weapon held in their hand. Very disturbing, actually. And again, it's just one of those parts, it's strange, isn't it? Some of the scenes obviously in this book stand out, but sometimes I love the descriptiveness or the analogies or metaphors that come up, which are really cool. Next up is just a funny moment, and this is a funny moment. I think this is really, this almost made me laugh out loud, which is a moment between Master Quell and Gruntle. And I think it's when Master Quell is following Gruntle, but he's never quite catching him up. And Gruntle says, "You do not sound well to Master Quell. I need to pee." Then Master Quell says, "I can't." "Well, I can, but intermittently. Generally when I'm not thinking about it." And Gruntle goes, "A healer could." Yes, I know. Never mind that. Listen." And then Gruntle says, "Master Quell, this is not the way to avoid undue attention." It's just quite a comical, awkward scene that just stood out to me and made me laugh when I was reading it. And the next favourite moment, so I mean, I'm going to do another spoiler warning because this is a huge spoiler for this book, but what happens, Anamanda Rake's final scene is really epic. I mean, it's outstandingly done and written as well. As he is, killed by the Traveller, Dasimultor, right? It is, the description of it is great, I think, and perhaps that is my favourite moment. But what I actually liked was a part I read after all that's happened, when Silana is kind of describing, I think Silana was one of Anamanda Rake's subjects, right? And so Silana is describing what the mood is like on Black Coral, and this is what I'm going to read. So Silana says, "The rain descended. Kellic ran in bitter streams on the streets, down building walls, filled the gutters in mad rush. Droplets struck and sizzled black upon the hide of Silana. This was the rain of usurpation, and against it they felt helpless." And then in italics, the text says, "Drink deep, Black Coral, and dance, yes, dance until you die." I just liked that sort of, again, it's kind of poetic. It's poetry in the writing a bit, in the way that sort of Erikson is painting the picture of a character describing a scene, and he does that a lot. And I remember, I think one of my favourite moments from Garden to the Moon was where he describes a scene that is being witnessed by a character. I think in that book it was Tattersail, and what she was describing, and her point of view. He's very good at points of views and descriptions, I think, when big scenes are happening, or in this case have happened. I really think that's one of, again, a strong point of Erikson for me. And yeah, he's great at, I think, at writing, but his structure and the way that he narrates his stories is the thing that frustrates me. So I just want to make clear that slight distinction, because I have kind of also criticised the chaotic style of the book and his books sometimes, generally, that there is that side to his writing which is also brilliant, which is the way he describes things, I think, and his sort of building of characters and their thoughts and feelings about things is just great and really great to behold. So that's it for this Malazan book review. Actually, it was short, wasn't it? But yeah, I really I liked Toll The Hounds. I think it's you know, I as I say, I don't want to sort of do a ranking yet. I think preferred it to Reaper's Gale for sure. Loved the last part of the book. I think there was, again, some really good character work. So that's it from me for this video. I hope you enjoyed this. Until the next book in the series, book number 9. I look forward to seeing you then. That may be at least a few weeks away, going by my current progress with the series. My progress generally so far has been somewhat slow, so I thank you if you're here for Malazan and you've been patient with me on this journey through this book series. Otherwise, from me, take care everybody. Until next time, bye for now.